Hello everyone, how are you? I hope all you people will be happy and healthy to your places. Dear students, in your childhood you must have heard one story. The story of a farmer and his four sons. The farmer gives them a bundle of sticks to break, and none of them could be able to break the bundle. Also, you would have heard one famous proverb, घर का भेदी लंका ढाए. Now, some of you may be wondering that why I am telling you these stories or proverbs. The reason behind it that our today's lecture is also based on one story. The story of a company who just came here for trade. But when it found the disunity, then it started ruling us. What students I am talking about? The story of East India Company. So let's study about this company, its arrival and its establishment in detail. Dear students, in today's session we will discuss about the chapter number 2 of history, arrival and establishment of East India Company in India. As I have stated in the introduction part that a company came here for doing trade and afterwards it started ruling us. So what was the story of this company? Let's start or let's study in detail. Students, if we see the political situation during the 18th century, then we find that the last great Mughal emperor Aurangzeb had died in 707, and after his death the area which was under the control of Mughals, it started breaking into smaller parts. The modern India which we see today, its maximum part was under the control of Mughal emperors at that time. But after the death of the Aurangzeb, the next Mughal rulers were not so much capable. So due to which what happened, the governors, the zamindars and other local rulers who earlier were under the control of the Mughal Empire, they started declaring themselves free from the control of Mughals and they started establishing their own kingdoms. Due to which the power which was earlier centralized, now it became decentralized. After seeing the political situation at the 18th century, now let's see that how the East India Company was established. So dear students, at that time there was a great demand of Indian goods in Europe, like spices. Among spices, some particular spices were there like pepper, clove, cardamom and cinnamon. Similarly, there was also the demand of raw silk and cotton. So company thought that if it will purchase the things from the India and sell it to Europe, it can earn a lot of profit. So keeping in mind this point, East India Company was established in 1599 to trade with the eastern countries, especially with India. And in 1600 AD, this company, I mean to say East India Company, got successful in getting the charter from the Queen of England, Elizabeth I. Now, what is the meaning of the word charter here? Here, charter means only East India Company could do the trade with East or with India. From England, no other company was allowed to do the trade with India from England. But was the main aim of the company? The main aim of the company to acquire the charter was to buy the goods at cheap rate from India and to sell these goods to the European countries at the high rate. When the goods are purchased at low rate and sold at higher rate by a company, this is called merchandise. Students, as you have seen in the previous part of this video, that East India Company was established to do the trade with India, and main aim of the company was to earn maximum profit. But when East India Company came to India, it found that Portuguese had already made a well-established base in India. Means the Portuguese had already established a very good base in India. They were already doing the trade in India. Actually, there was a Portuguese explorer and trader, Vasco da Gama, and this Vasco da Gama had discovered a new sea route from Cape of Good Hope to India in 1498. Let's try to understand this with the help of this slide. At that time, people were searching for the new sea route from Europe to India, and for that, time to time, many expeditions were sent, and many expeditions found the way from Europe to the one part of Africa which is called Cape of Good Hope. Next sea route nobody was knowing, but Vasco da Gama, who was a Portuguese, he found the sea route from the Cape of Good Hope to India. He reached actually in Kerala. There is one place is there, Calicut, where he reached. So after the discovery of this sea route, now the people need not to depend upon the land route, which was called at that time Silk Route, and it was very risky route at that time. So people started using this sea route from Europe to India for doing the trade. So when East India Company reached here, at that time they found that Portuguese people had already made a well-established base in India, and they were already doing the trade in India. Anyhow, it established its factories in India, and both Portuguese and the East India Company made in the starting a lot of profit. When they were going back, the company officers and other persons related to the company to the Europe, they were leading their very luxurious life. And after seeing all these things, many other European countries started sending their persons to trade with India. Like at that time, the companies from the Holland the companies from the Dutch and the companies from the France also came here to trade with India. Students, as we have already stated in the previous part of this video, that there was a great demand of cotton, raw silk, cloves, black pepper and other spices in Europe. Because there was a great demand of all these items in Europe, so there was a lot of profit involved in it. Due to this, many European countries made their trading companies like East India Company, Dutch East India Company, Holland East India Company and French East India Company, and all started doing the trade with India. But where the problem started, let's see in this paragraph. As many companies started trading in the same items, means all wanted to trade in the same items which we have discussed here: silk, clove, black pepper and other spices. They wanted to purchase the same things from India and wanted to sell them in Europe at higher prices. Due to this, what happened? The competition increased very much among these companies, and once the competition increased, very slowly their profit decreased because many companies were there. Now, what was the solution to increase the profit? The only way to increase the profit was to eliminate the other companies from the competition, means to remove those companies from the competition. This was the only way by which the other companies could increase their profit. For this, they adopted different type of methods, like the companies started sinking the ships of other companies. They also started making factories. Now here the word factory doesn't mean a place where something is produced, but here the factory means the place where the goods of any company which they were trading, they were kept. They also started the fortification of their factories and started keeping their soldiers in order to protect the goods which they were keeping in the factories. Due to this competition, many other companies eliminated, means due to this competition, what happened? Many other companies were there who left India and they went back to their own countries. And finally, there remained two countries. One, there was the East India Company from England, and second one we have the French East India Company from France. Only these two companies left, and all again between these two countries the competition was there. In order to earn maximum profit, again there was a lot of fight between the East India Company and the French East India Company, and many battles occurred between the East India Company and the French companies, which we call the Anglo-French Carnatic Wars. And finally, in the East India Company became the winner. It eliminated other companies, and this company, East India Company, became the winner, and it remain only company in India which was doing the trade. Students, like we have seen in the previous part of this chapter that there was a lot of demand of Indian goods in Europe, and many companies from the Europe came here to deal or to do the trade with India, like French East India Company, then Dutch and Holland East India Company, and the British East India Company. These companies set up their factories in different part of the country. In the same way, British East India Company set up its first factory in Bengal in 1651, and as you know that all these companies were dealing in the same item, so there was a lot of competition among these companies. They also had started sinking the ships of other companies. They also had started destroying the goods of other companies. So in order to save the goods from being destroyed from other companies, the companies were doing the fortification around its factories. So in the same way, in the 1696, the East India Company started making a fort around its factory. The company wanted to earn a lot of profit, and for it also adopted other methods. Like in 1698, the company got the zamindari rights of 3 villages. Here zamindari right means they got the right of collecting the tax from these 3 villages, and out of these 3 villages, one village was Kalikata. Later on, this village developed into a city which is nowadays known as Calcutta or Kolkata. As I have told you that the main aim of the company was to earn the profit, that's why it was adopting different type of methods. It persuaded the Mughal Emperor Aurangzeb to issue a farman. Farman means a royal order, means the order from the side of a king. So the company got successful in getting one order from the Aurangzeb side, which granted the company to do the trade in Bengal duty free. Duty free means without paying the tax. So this much privilege or this much advantage the company had already taken. But the problem started when the British officer who were doing the private trade along with their job in East India Company, they also refused to pay the duty or the tax. Due to this, there was a great loss to the local rulers of Bengal, because they were not getting the tax from the officers who refused to pay the tax. After that, Battle of Plassey 1757. As we have seen in the previous part of this video, that after the death of the last great ruler Aurangzeb, many governors and the zamindars had declared themselves free from the control of the Mughals. In the same way, Murshid Quli Khan declared himself free from the control of the Mughal Empire, and he became the independent ruler of Bengal. After the death of Murshid Quli Khan, many new rulers were there of Bengal. In 1756, Ali Vardi Khan died. He was the second last ruler of the Bengal, and after his death, the Surajudaulah became the Nawab of Bengal. He wanted to control the rising power of the company, so he told to the company officers to do the following. First of all, he told to the company officers to stop fortification of the factories which were there in Bengal. Similarly, he told to the British officers that please pay the revenue or the tax on your private trade. And third thing, he told to the British officers that stop interfering in the internal matters of the Bengal. But after negotiation, these things could not be resolved. Finally, the Nawab marched with his 30,000 soldiers to the English East India Company, which was situated in Qasim Bazar, and he captured there the company officials. He disarmed all Englishmen and blocked English ships. Then he marched to Calcutta to establish control over the company's fort. When this news reached to the officers of the East India Company, they sent the forces under the commander Robert Clive, and he tried to talk with Nawab, but it came up with no result. Means both tried to solve the matter, but the matter could not be solved. Finally, in 1757, Robert Clive attacked on the forces of Nawab, and he was defeated. But what was the reason behind the defeat of the Nawab? Basically, two main reasons were there. The first reason was the non-involvement of the commander of Nawab, Mir Qasim, in the battle. Actually, Mir Qasim himself wanted to become the ruler of Bengal. That's why he took the side of the Britishers and he did not take part in the battle. The second reason was non-involvement of the other important persons of Bengal. Like Surajudaulah told to Jagat Seth that please support me with money, because at that time he was the richest person of Bengal, but Jagat Seth refused to help the Nawab of Bengal. Similarly, Omnichand had some soldiers which could help the Surajudaulah in the battle, but Omnichand also refused to help the Nawab of Bengal. So due to these reasons, in the battle of Plassey, Nawab Sirajuddaula defeated, and this battle became a historical battle for the Britishers, because after that they continuously started winning other battles, and very slowly they became the ruler of full India. Dear students, now let's do the recapitulation whatever we have studied in this video. First of all, we studied that after the death of Aurangzeb, many governors and zamindars declared themselves free from the control of Mughals. Then in 1600 AD, East India Company got successful in getting charter from the Queen of England, Elizabeth I. There was a great demand of Indian goods in Europe like spices, raw silk and cotton. Portuguese explorer and trader Vasco da Gama discovered a new sea route from Cape of Good Hope to India in 1498. Then in the last we studied that Battle of Plassey took place in 1757. Now let's do the quick revision whatever we have studied in this video. First question is, take the correct option, and under it there is a first question, who was the last great Mughal emperor? And your options are Babur, Aurangzeb and Akbar. The correct answer is Aurangzeb was known as the last great Mughal ruler. Second question, when did Battle of Plassey take place? 1757, 1600 or 1599? So the Battle of Plassey take place in 1757. Third question, who was fighting from East India Company side in the Battle of Plassey? And your options are Robert Clive, Robert Hill or both A and B. So its correct answer is Robert Clive. Next question, which of the following was known as black gold? Which spice was there which was known at that time black gold? Clove, pepper, cardamom. The answer is pepper, because at that time people were not knowing about chilies, so people were using the pepper in substitute of chilies. That's why its prices were very much high in Europe at that time. Next question, which of the following person did not take part in the Battle of Plassey? And your options are Robert Clive, Sirajuddaula and Mir Qasim. So its correct answer is Mir Qasim. Next question, straight true or false? Under it there is a first question, East India Company was established in 1599. So this statement is true statement. Second question is, a business enterprise that makes profit primarily through trade, buying goods cheap and selling them at higher prices is called mercantile. So this statement is also a true statement. This is all about in today's video. I hope you people would have learned something new and interesting. Stay protected and stay healthy in your homes. God bless you all. After seeing the political situation at the 18th century, now let's see that how the East India Company was established. So dear students, at that time there was a great demand of Indian goods in Europe, like spices. Among spices, some particular spices were there, like pepper, clove, cardamom, and cinnamon. Similarly, there was also the demand of raw silk and cotton. So, company thought that if it will purchase the things from the India and sell it to Europe, it can earn a lot of profit. So keeping in mind this point, East India Company was established in 1599 to trade with the eastern countries, especially with India. And in 1600 AD, this company, I mean to say East India Company, got successful in getting the charter from the Queen of England, Elizabeth I. Now, what is the meaning of the word charter here? Here, charter means only East India Company could do the trade with East or with India. From England, no other company was allowed to do the trade with India from England. But was the main aim of the company? The main aim of the company to acquire the charter was to buy the goods at cheap rate from India and to sell these goods to the European countries at the high rate. When the goods are purchased at low rate and sold at higher rate by a company, this is called mercantile.